Welcome to episode 44 of the Single Malt Strategy Podcast. I'm your host, Jean, the Strategy Wargamer, and with me today are my co-hosts, Matt, the Historical Gamer, and Eric, TortugaPower. How are you guys doing first? That well, huh?
When I didn't hear Matt respond, I intentionally did not respond.
I was intentionally waiting for you, Tortuga.
So, I wanted to ask, what kind of games you guys have been playing?
I played Mashinki. It's a train tycoon game. I really like train tycoon games.
Oh, it sounds like a Russian game.
Yeah, the name of it is not not like descriptive of what the game is actually about, and I've seen that complained about, but it honestly just reminds me of OpenTTD, which is a game I just keep going back to because it's free. It's amazing. It's very deep.
What's OpenTTD?
It's Open Transport Tycoon Deluxe. TTD itself was some game from the 90s, and then they reverse engineered it. And yeah, it's just it's like a very, very good sim for train building, and it also does cars, airplanes, any kind of transportation.
Cool. So
that's that. I've been playing the crap out of Field of Glory Empires, which I'm still having a really good time with.
I have not gone back to that game. I've found no desire to go back to it.
Really? Why is that?
I don't know. It's just I played it a little bit, and I was just like, it's okay. But I don't know. Just it never grabbed me.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to tell other people that as well. You have to invest. It may not be worth it for people, but you have to kind of invest 4 hours, I find. It's an age-odd game, right? So it takes 4 or 5 hours initial investment to get over the hump. And some other people I'm doing a series on YouTube right now, and some other people have finally shared that same opinion with me. I just had somebody today say, I finally bought it, and it took me a while to get over the hump, but now I'm enjoying it. And yeah, I think that's just how the game is, or maybe just every age-odd title.
How often do you play the tactical part? Is it every game, or is it once in a blue?
No, for me, the tactical, which is fun, is also horrifying because I don't like RNG. I just hate when I see something bad happen. I feel observation bias. You're I lost exactly half those battles. Luck must be against me. No, it's probably not, but... So, I don't like to do those on camera as well, because they do take, 3 hours, so that's 5 episodes. So,
oh, shit.
It's a long time for, a series to go just into one tactical battle.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because I see you, putting out, 40-minute episodes. Those would have to probably double in size, and probably take you a while to kind of get through it.
Yeah, the tactical battle ones that I was doing were 55 minutes each, and I think it took me 3 episodes to get through a tactical one, so yeah, it's intense. What about you guys?
Matt?
What have I been playing?
You have not been playing Isle 2 one of these days.
That is true. When
are you going to fly with me?
Isle 2 was a supermarket shopping game?
But that would require me to actually sit down and learn how to fly, and as much as I say I want to do that, I just, for whatever reason, I've been in this weird mood lately where I have not wanted to learn how to play a game that I can't just pick up and play. So maybe I'm losing my strategy touch. I don't know, but
I sympathize. I feel especially for me, it's that exact feeling is correlated with how difficult my work is. And so my father, he played video games when I was growing up, and I remember, we played these hardcore games, actual, not video games, but the tabletop hex games. One called Global War, another one called Panzer Blitz or something like that. So they're much more complicated. Global War is probably a hex-based version of Axis and Allies. So it's because it's the entire world map. But anyway, I just remember him slowly devolving into more and more stupid games. I ended up seeing him play basically just action games when he got home from work, and I feel it's the same thing. Same thing that Matt's saying. That eventually work wears you down, and you just don't have the time to process these complicated games.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying I won't want to go back at some point, but you were talking about age-odd. I've been watching XTRG's series, a little bit of it anyway, on Pride of Nations. And it's, God damn, that is a game that would take Victoria and be we're going to add a shit ton of detail Whether it's good or bad, I don't know. But, it's going to add a lot of detail, whether it's for detail's sake or not. But I have no desire to sit down and read a 200-page manual and then stumble through 10 hours of gameplay before I even start to understand what the heck I'm doing. So, that's just the mood I frankly have been in probably the last 3 or 4 months. I'm still playing War in the Pacific, but that's a game I kind of understand. So it's, deep and complex, but I'm not learning it from the ground up.
Are you playing the AI or a human player?
I'm in a series that's been going for about a year against XTRG. It's a play-by-email game, so 1 turn equals 1 day.
Oh, okay. Wow. So how far are you? What's the start date and where are you?
We just got through January 1942.
Oh, shit.
So that's about like a 1 to 10 ratio, which means that they should be finished in this game, I guess in the next 40 years, right?
Yeah, I think someone did the math, and they're like, you guys will finish this game in 36.5 years. And I'm just like, well, did you know the war can actually go into 1946? The game doesn't end until the spring of 46, so maybe it's actually 50 years. I don't know. Whether I'll still have a machine or not that can run it that far from now, I don't know. But it's been fun. It's been a bit of a challenge, and it's certainly something that a lot of people on my channel have been interested in following. And I will say that even though it's like a year old, I wouldn't say the audience is growing, but I've never had a series that's maintained the audience as well as this game has for as long as this has. And if anything, people are getting more interested in it. But it's been a lot of fun. But I haven't, in terms of like new complicated games, I've got so many games I want to try. I want to try and give Pride of Nations a fair shake, but again, I just don't want to spend 10 hours learning a game. I want to, try to get back into Command when the new game comes out, and I probably will give that one a bit of a shake. But that's a deep and complicated game. That's just, I don't fully understand the current one, let alone however more complex they're going to make that, and we can talk about that in a bit. But that's just kind of my mood right now. What I've actually been playing is, over the last week, I played a game called Headliner Novi News, which is
I saw that.
Was a lot of fun. It's kind of stupid, but it's like a mix of like Papers, Please and like running your own news company. So like basically you have to pick the headlines. So different headlines are available to you with different political spins or different issues that you might want to cover, and you can choose to publish whatever you want to publish, but depending on what you publish, it has an impact, right? Like if you keep publishing anti-government things, then this prime minister who's kind of like a quasi-dictator who's coming into power might start going after you and can cause problems for you. Or if you
what kind of problem?
I mean, I don't want to spoil the game. It's honestly, it's a pretty it's a crazy game. Like there were drones crashing into buildings. I met with this like guy in a trench coat behind like some building or whatever, and he was telling me about some crazy conspiracy theory that he's telling me about it, and I'm just thinking like, oh my goodness, this sounds kind of plausible. And then I publish it, and my boss is like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you can't publish that. And then the city like explodes into a riot the next day because like people bought it. They were like, this is real. Oh my goodness, the Illuminati or whatever, like after us. And basically by the end of my game, I caused a revolution, an assassination, and a disappearance of a close friend / relative who we never saw again, and they were all the outcomes of my actions. And I played through it in about 2.5 hours, and it was a lot of fun. It was really easy to pick up and play. It's kind of there's a love story, there's a troubled relative, there's the boss that you have to manage in addition to all these other things, and I wonder how much variance there is in there. Maybe if I don't take such an anti-government line, we can maintain peace. Maybe I can get paid more and actually buy a couch. I don't know. But as silly as the game is, there's a lot of interesting issues that it touches upon. It's like in the future, and there's like things like modifying your body with like cyborg parts and stuff like that. But then there's also like issues of like immigration, which is very sort of contemporary. There's issues with an executive that's increasingly taking more and more power, and you could depending on your point of view, that may be something that you see in a more modern sense. And I think it's an interesting game that touches on a lot of relevant topics, but in such sort of a cartoony kind of fun way that it kind of makes it something you can laugh at, enjoy, and have a good time, while also still, kind of makes you reflect on, like, how would you report some of these stories.
So what's the kind of like the end? What's the victory condition of the game? Is the revolution like that you won the game?
No, I mean, I don't know if there is a, it's not like, oh, this is your objective, to make X number of dollars, or to woo the girl, or to do whatever. I mean, I think it's you're an editor at this newspaper, and you're kind of trying to navigate these situations, and I think the game lasts 14 days, and just sort of at the end of it, you kind of see where you get. I'm imagining there's scenarios where you could probably die too, but I don't know. So I don't know if there is a victory state. There's just different endings that can occur. Some of them probably more bad than others.
Do you recommend the game?
Yeah, I mean, it was only like $14. I mean, and again, 2.5 hours for the first playthrough. But I think if I chose different options, or was more consistent, or maybe if I took a hard anti-immigrant stance, then obviously like the game could be very, very different. And I enjoyed it. Everybody's sense of value is different, but it was certainly something that I had a really good time with, and the people who watched the stream seemed to really enjoy it.
How long did it take you to finish the game? Is it like 2 hours and you're done?
Well, again, so I played through it in one sit through in 2.5 hours, but each day there's like a choice of like, you've got like 5 or 6 different news stories that you publish 2 or 3 of. And so like if I had published a different 2 or 3 on one day, that would have completely changed what happened the next day. So like,
has a lot of replayability.
I don't know. I mean, it's certainly, I think it has replayability, as long as you don't use the exact same options every time. But, I haven't gone back to play it again. I probably will, but I haven't done that yet. My world ended very chaotically, probably because I was not very consistent in my choices.
Jean, you didn't mention what you're playing.
Oh, so
no one cares about Jean.
So I've been playing a game that you guys had mixed reviews in the beginning. So the game is Axis and Allies 1942 Online, which we just did an interview with the producer and found out a lot of good tidbits. So before I dive into my take on that and the games I've been playing, I wanted to see if your guys' opinion has changed or improved, because I know you guys have been playing in the last couple weeks.
No. My opinion on Axis and Allies has not changed. It feels like it might have been rushed out. It didn't feel very well optimized. The fact that the synchronous online play took literally like 20 minutes for every person to go. Well, maybe that's just what the Axis and Allies experience was in person, but I'd be happy to do that in like a social event, like where I'm in a room with people having some beers and whatever, but I don't really have any desire to do it over the internet, and I don't think I have any desire to play against the AI. I mean, I played through one game with the AI and crushed it in like 40 minutes in like 3 turns, and it's just not super compelling. Nothing against the developer in that sense. It's just not something that's super interesting to me.
So, talking to the developer in the last episode, I got to find out that, well, one, I don't know if we knew this about when we actually did the stream with all 3 of us playing the game. There is asynchronous turns on this game. So technically we can all start a game, and I can go one day and you can go the next, and Tortuga can go the day after. So it's not like we don't all have to be online at the same time to do the game, which I think is kind of cool, because I thought originally that we all had to be online playing the game at the same time, and that's why Tortuga got a little upset, because it was like an hour later and he literally did not do anything. He was literally just watching the game.
Yeah, I mean, I know it has the turn-based option, but I just if I'm going to be playing a turn-based game, I think I want to play something a little more interesting.
So, but do you feel like, a human player is definitely going to definitely beat the AI, right? Like, it's definitely going to be much more challenging.
Are there difficulty levels? I can't remember for the AI, because the AI is not the brightest. It's not the sharpest tool in the shed.
It's not the Skynetiest AI out there.
I would say that the AI is like a good training ground for people who haven't ever played Axis and Allies before. So that was actually myself as well. Yeah, I mean, it was not very difficult to defeat them. Some of the game mechanics to me were a little bit. Maybe this is in the manual or something, but there was people who were watching me play or commenting on the videos saying that here's the rules and is this the same rules they're using, and we couldn't really figure it out. I think it's probably the same, but I think that several other people at least were commenting that it is fun online, and probably that's if you're just I think the exact environment that we did it under, having some people just kind of messing around online together, that could be a fun Friday night for some people, especially for people who already enjoyed Axis and Allies, and they just don't want to go to actually find other people to get that experience in person. If that's a little too difficult, just doing, maybe you already have played Axis and Allies with some people, and you just want to do it online. I would say that absolutely the game is not optimized. That's the first thing, if I was a developer, I would work on, because it's just a little janky. Why is it that when I'm playing my turn, that other people don't know the battle that I'm playing? That, if I'm playing the United States and if Historical Gamer is Japan, and I go to battle in something, why doesn't he see a result? I mean, even when the AI finishes a battle, why don't people see a result of the battle? You just you have no idea what's going on when it's someone else's turn. There's just you're seeing the dice rolled, you're seeing things being eliminated, but there's no summary. And the only way to figure out what happened is to go in after they finish their turn. You just look through the list of what they did and try to figure out what the battles were.
So I did talk to him, and he did mention that the game was first built on asynchronous play. So the sync is not 100%, he mentioned. He also mentioned that they did get a lot of feedback about that.
Anybody who played the game would notice, because it's just so... any game that you've ever played before has done it in the way where, as someone else fights a battle, you don't even need to see the dice rolls. You don't need to see anything. All you need to know is, all they need to do is show that this is a region which is having a battle right now. You don't have to show the dice rolls that are happening, because you don't influence them anyway. I mean, if they can get that working, fine, great, but all you need to do is show that this is the province which is having a battle, and then most importantly, you should show a battle summary, something that the user can click away when they're done reading it, when they're finished. And I would say it would be great if those stacked on top of each other, so that just in case someone finishes another battle, while you're still reading the first one, just let another pop-up come up. That's the only thing that people need to see when it's not their turn, is what are the big battles.
But I think the reason why that's happening is because it's the game was first designed for asynchronous. So it's even though we're all playing together and we're in the same game, it's kind of split into different parts. It's not as well connected as a full multiplayer game, a full synchronous game. I feel like it's kind of patched together when you're trying to do synchronous play, so that's why it's kind of it's kind of in that situation. He did mention that they are putting their effort into trying to fix that, specifically that.
Yeah, I still think it's fair, though, from Tortuga's point, is just at the end of the day, if your game design prevents the player... I don't care what it was intended to do. If the game design prevents your player from clearly understanding what the hell just happened, that's a design problem.
I didn't want to even come off like that. I mean, look, if they're fixing it, that's great. Then just let them fix it. Just as long as they're, not satisfied with the game the way it is right now, because I would not be if I was a developer, and... sounds like they're aware of it and they're working to fix it. That's good. I think that if they fix two things in particular, the game would be I would consider playing it as a multiplayer game on my Friday nights, only if they fix the optimization, which it just shouldn't take 3 seconds for an order to be executed, especially because the graphics of the game are, even if they have to cut back on the graphics is not the point of this game, right? So they should just make it so that it plays very smoothly, very quickly, because that's the worst reason to have a slow turn. Most of the time it's because we're going to take a long time to decide, but if it's the game limiting you or making the turn even slower, then that's just has to be addressed. So
yeah, and I mean, I guess my main complaints are just kind of similar to what Tortuga is saying, is the transitions from not battle to battle just take way too long. I don't need to see like a flashy like the battle is occurring here and here's the ships and here's the planes and like a splash screen and then you go into the battle.
Yeah.
Like that took 3 or 4.
So you'd rather have it turned off?
Or optional.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need to see a splash screen every single time. I completely agree.
Right? Like, oh, this is just, it's basically a thumbnail before the battle, except it takes 3 or 4 seconds every single time. And I mean, if you remember when we were playing, like, my game froze up on me 4 or 5 times, for a minute or 2 at a time where I could do nothing. So I think there's optimization that needs to occur. It's in early access, so, while some of it may not be super well polished or anything like that, they can obviously fix it. But it's not something that I have a ton of interest in going back to right now. Admittedly, I don't have a ton of interest in going back to Axis and Allies right now. Like, if I was going to play Axis and Allies, I think it's an interesting game to play with friends. Like, if I'm going to have people over and we just want to kind of play something casual and have a few beers and kind of talk through it. Or maybe if you guys all wanted to play a multiplayer game through Discord, if they could speed it up a little bit, then yeah, maybe I would do that. But I don't really have any desire to play Axis and Allies against strangers or against the AI. I would rather play other games.
I think it's a good game to play like while you're watching a movie. Like get a bunch of people over and have the Axis and Allies going.
Yeah, exactly.
While you're watching a movie.
but that's something I'd rather do on a physical board if I'm having people over
exactly.
doing than on a digital.
Well, because we're I guess that especially I'm going to speak for you, Matt. Feel free to disagree, but I feel like I don't even want to say like more of a hardcore strategist, but this is a little bit too casual, and I'd consider it more specifically for multiplayer, but only if it was, improved a bit, yeah. But what, Sean, I mean, I feel like you brought this up because you want to make some points about it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think this game works well in synchronous play. Not because the way it was designed. I feel like it's an inherent thing when you bring a board game to a digital platform. Like, the reason why board games are great is because, like, you bring a whole bunch of friends together, right? You get beers, you get some pizza, right? And when it takes, when your next turn is 40 minutes or an hour away, you can watch the game, have a couple of beers, get a little intoxicated, plan stupid decisions, do stupid shit like that. And I feel like when you're playing it digitally with people from different parts of the country, like, you're literally just staring at a screen doing nothing. You're talking to the other people, like, hey, so what else is going on? And you're watching things that are happening on the screen, but you can't interact. Obviously you could have your beer and stuff like that, but it's not as interactive because you can't bullshit with your friends. And I feel like when they were designing, Beamdog was designing this game, they had asynchronous in mind only, and they added synchronous as a patched up toward the end. And I'm playing a multiplayer game right now all asynchronously, and I love it because I literally play 20 minutes a day, do my turn, record it, post it on YouTube, and it's really cool because I look forward to it. I think about the shit in my head while I'm working, and I'm like, all right, maybe if I take the Caucasus, and then maybe I'll put some transports, take England out. It's kind of cool because it kind of does that. So I feel like, honestly, like, the game was designed primarily for asynchronous play, and I think what would be even better for this game, I think what would bring this game to the next level would be mobile. Because, like, a lot of times I'll get a ping, middle of the day or something like that. Hey, by the way, it's your turn. Well, that's great. I'm at work, and then I got to go home. I got to, take care of the baby. Got to spend time with someone, with the family. And so it's probably going to be close to that 24-hour time limit that I have before I can get on the computer and do it. However, if it was on my phone or my tablet, I can literally just do it on my, half-hour lunch or something like that, which would be great. What do you guys think about bringing this game to mobile?
It's the one time where I think you're right.
Shit! Wow.
No, I think it's that kind of game. When we were talking about, what were you talking about? Assault on Arnhem, something like that. Those Hex Core, whatever they are, games like those are. I feel like almost shouldn't be on PC because they're just so obviously mobile designed. And I feel like that this game, again, I don't know what they're going to do about the optimization stuff, but this game fits for that. Yeah. If I didn't realize that there was actually a bunch of people who are willing to play this by email. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely seems to be an audience out there. I mean, the games that I've done on my channel have drawn reasonably well in terms of views. So it seems like there's an interest in this, and I think it would probably work a lot better in a mobile environment. So yeah, you kind of stole my thunder there, Tortuga. I was going to agree with you, Jean.
Wow.
But this is the only time, Jean. Don't get any ideas.
It's not. So everybody write this in the history book. This is monumental. This is like the Paris Peace Accords
This will be a day long remembered.
It shouldn't be on Steam. Like, it's fine that it's on PC. It's just, I don't think it's a game for me. I think.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. I'm not saying it's not. I was saying that the hex core games are.
Don't want to be accused of being all snooty tooty. Tortuga's like, no, man, this doesn't even belong on PC. It doesn't pass the PC muster.
This is what I don't like. I don't like a game which is obviously a port from tablet that has no, even like very basic interface stuff for PC. I believe the hex core stuff doesn't even have a left click, right click. It's just because you don't have a left click, right click on tablet. Like, come on, just show me that you did like half-ass effort at least, and I'm willing to overlook these things.
I mean, my major issues come down to some of the design decisions around like how things are resolved and the speed at which they're resolved, and then just the overall quality of the optimization, which is just not there yet. And if it gets there, it could be a fun little game, but I don't think personally Axis and Allies is the kind of game that I'm super interested in playing on a computer. But everybody has, different tastes and preferences. My biggest issue really just comes down to it's not well optimized, and there's some UX, UI design decisions that I don't think make a ton of sense for PC.
Would you be more inclined if it was on your phone or your iPad mini?
Maybe. I don't know. Like, I don't think Axis and Allies is personally the kind of game that I have any desire to play unless I'm just kind of shooting the breeze like we did with some friends, and that's fine. It was fun to play one turn, but like, it needs to not take almost 2 hours to get through the first turn, and it needs to be a game against people I know and want to spend some time with. So like, in that sense, there's just not, I don't play a ton of games with like on my computer with close friends or whatever. Occasionally I'll drop in Tortuga's Discord and we'll play a multiplayer game, but like, that's kind of once in a blue moon. So just for me, I think for me, a PC game has to have a strong single-player element. I'm not a super hardcore multiplayer type of a player. Like, even War in the Pacific, you can definitely play that single player. And I'm just not going to play a ton of games that I need to personally know someone to enjoy it. It's not even just that it's single-player versus multiplayer. It's that I get no enjoyment out of Axis and Allies versus a random stranger in a way that I would get enjoyment out of War in the Pacific. War in the Pacific is such a more intimate experience that I think you really get to know someone as you play them, and you get to know how they think, and it's mind games or whatever. Axis and Allies just isn't that.
Interesting. So, Tortuga, I kind of want to piggyback off what you were mentioning. You mentioned Hex War games before. So you were saying like they make a lot of mobile games, and I know they're also they ported a lot of them to the PC platform. You were mentioning like the mouse, and it's not like coded properly.
I don't remember exactly what it was. I believe that the only thing you can use for functionality is left click. That may not be correct, or it could have been that was correct at the time and they've fixed that. But when I played the game, it was just very apparent that they took no time to customize anything for PC itself. When you're playing the Hex War games, at least Assault on Arnhem, and the other ones I've seen, you're playing a tablet game on the PC. And I don't mean that it's a port even, it's basically the exact... It's just, you might as well, if you have a touchscreen monitor, I'm sure it'll be exactly the same. I don't think that there's any PC functionality introduced whatsoever. I mean, I'm not saying, okay, so that's I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm kind of a snob, maybe. I like it when a game on the PC takes advantage of PC functionality. And people will sit there and probably correctly, I don't know, they could just say, well, would you rather have the game on PC at all, or would you rather have it, not on PC because people like you wanted it implemented better? I don't know, that's tough. Don't make me answer such a question that I just asked myself. But
So Hex War is kind of responsible for a lot. Like, they have a lot of games on the mobile and now PC platform. The game that I wanted to kind of like bring up, which actually we started talking about before the podcast began, which was Assault on Arnhem, which is on for the iPad. I actually purchased on the iPad while I was not feeling well a couple of days ago, and I was kind of really surprised because I really don't take well to Hex War games because, well, we mentioned it earlier, and I guess we'll talk about it during this podcast, that I feel honestly like they made a game engine and they basically just, have a hex-based game, and I feel like they made one for a Civil War game, and then just keep replicating the same game, the same map, the same everything for every different conflict in history. Like, I feel like there's little to no difference between their Civil War game and their American Revolution game, and pretty much every other title that they came out with, except when it came to Assault on Arnhem. I saw it in the screenshots on the App Store. I was like, wow, this looks a little different than they normally have. So I purchased it, and I was kind of like really surprised and really shocked that, like, this is actually a good game. I'm really surprised. And did you guys get a chance to play it? I don't know if you guys ever played it.
That's the only Hex War game I've ever played. Like, I did a full video on it. Yeah, I got a lot of people commenting about it. I think I ended up recommending it for people on who want to do it on PC.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was kind of surprised by it, but believe it or not, I was trying to find more. Like, I figured they did Assault on Arnhem. Maybe they have some Russian campaigns, something. No, they just did Assault on Arnhem, and that was it. And they went over to the normal Hex War games that we're always see from them. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what are your guys' thoughts on Hex War? Do you feel like had they just replicated Assault on Arnhem the way that works for like different conflicts, would that have worked? Or like, how do you feel about the company and like the direction they're going?
I've never played any Hex War games. I just know that I see them come out with a ton of games on a ton of different topics, but I've never, looking at them, they've never been something that's kind of lured me in to give them a try.
But why is that?
I don't know. They just seem they don't seem very deep. They don't seem super unique to the conflicts. Like, there's a lot of conflicts in there that look like they'd be interesting to cover in a game, but to your point, it just looks like it's kind of a rinse and repeat approach. I don't really want to play a vanilla experience of the Peninsula War or the American Revolution or the Market Garden at Arnhem. There's a lot of games out there that do that kind of approach, but they tend to be more on mobile, and it's just not something that's super interesting to me. I want an immersive gaming experience, and I don't think I will get that based on what I've seen, and maybe it's just the marketing hasn't worked on me. I don't know, but it doesn't look super immersive.
Also, I remember now, the Hex War game is extremely dice-based. I just remembered this. That it's just, you literally roll dice. It's 1 through 5, right?
I'm not sure.
I think so. I just remembered, because I was like, why did I not like this game? I was just sitting here and meditating on it. And I remembered that it's just extremely RNG-based.
I thought I read somewhere that they're converted from board games. Like, there's it's a Hex War system. It's a conversion of actual board games. But I don't know. However it's set up, it just doesn't look super interesting to me. I'm not saying anything bad about the game. I don't know. I've never played them, but it's just never something I've looked at it and I've been like, ooh, I want to jump in on this.
I don't feel like they put really too much effort. Like, I'm looking at some of the user reviews, and it's like 50-50.
Yikes.
And it's just, I'm looking at Medieval.
So better than Imperator?
Oh, jeez. Funny thing that you mentioned that. I've been playing that a lot, and I feel like the game's getting better. Yeah, I don't know if did you guys get, re-update and try it again?
No, I'm not. I think Imperator is probably better. I'm just saying that I'm making a comment about the review scores is all.
So would you? I don't know. Did you get a chance to play in the last couple weeks?
No.
Oh, okay, because they came out with like 2 big patches, Pompeii and I think another one. Like, it's much more stable. A lot of systems have been reworked, and I don't know. There's like a lot of really cool things about Imperator. Like, I'll give you a good example that after the patches came out, one real cool thing I liked, I played as Greece, I'm playing as Greece, and I declared war against some neighboring nation. And when I went to war, my main guy, the monarch, the dictator, kind of controlled the armies. He moved out with an army of 20,000 men, which kind of left the capital without like a ruler, right? Like there's nobody there. So there was a pop-up event saying, hey, would you want your wife to kind of run things while you're gone? I'm like, yeah, that's actually a good idea. So, I don't get any like, Brutus or Cassius Clay. No, not Cassius Clay. Brutus and the other guy that tried to kill him. Mark Antony, I think.
Cassius
right?
Clay, yes. The famous Roman general who helped lift the Berlin blockade.
Sting like a butterfly and kill like a bee, I think.
Muhammad Ali, what the hell?
I'm totally screwing that up. But either way, like I kind of went west, took care of that country. And what was really cool is like my wife was taking control of the country, but she had her own agenda. Like she was focusing more, she was a more religious fanatic, and she was kind of, I would say, aligning the country toward more fanaticism. And my two sons were like squabbling with each other, and one killed the other. But I eventually ended the war. My guy got home and kind of like put the house in order. But I really love the fact that like I went to war and I was dealing with, fighting all these armies and conquering these new lands. But then I had shit going on at home that I had to take care of. And, in back of my head, it's like, I got to end this war before, like, my wife makes this country, like, zealots. And, like, I have another problem. I'm going to have to invade my country because by the time I get back, it's going to be completely different. So I feel like they're making good progress with this game. But I don't see the reviews getting any better. Like, why do you guys think that? Is it people just made up their mind already?
I think unless they have something, and I don't think a patch is going to do it, unless they have some sort of big splash that draws a bunch of people who haven't already played the game into the game, I don't know if the reviews are going to get that much better. I mean, I think they had a massive influx. They said it was might have been their best launch ever, which I do believe is probably true. But once you've got that critical mass of negative reviews, it's really hard to turn a score like that around. What you need is you probably need something to cause them to sell another 50,000 copies, and it's either going to take a really long time, or they need some big new thing, which a patch is not. That'd be my guess. I mean, people don't just change their reviews typically. They probably reviewed it and they never come back to the game. It's unfortunate because I think Paradox is one of those developers that does a really good job of bringing games to life over time. And over time, they really kind of transform the gaming experience from whatever it was at launch to something completely different. And I enjoy that about games like Crusader Kings or EU. But I do think that means if you get stuck with a negative score, it's, I wouldn't say impossible, but it's very difficult to change that.
Do you guys remember if Hearts of Iron and EU4 came out with like a negative
Nothing
score?
like what happened to Imperator.
No, yeah. This is kind of like people's referendum on Paradox's DLC policy, though, I feel. I don't know how bad of a game Imperium is. I'm sure that it's not 30% bad. It's not a 3 out of 10 game. Or whatever their review scores are sitting at.
I mean, if you look at their overall review score, it's a 38%, which is very bad. If
Oh
you
my
look at their
gosh.
recent reviews, it's a 40%, so it's...
Holy cow, that's actually... Okay, wow. Okay, look, I did not think Imperium was that bad.
But here's the thing. Regardless of what happens, they have 9,100 reviews or scores.
Mm.
What's it going to take to bring that 38% up to even 50, right? Like, it's going to take a lot of people buying and reviewing the game positively, very positively. And I just, a game gets a vast majority of their sales in the first couple of weeks, a game like this. And unless you have a really positive response like Crusader Kings and you have a really long tail to your game sales, it's not going to change much. I
mean, kind of the good news about this is that Paradox won't be able to invest DLC into a game which fails so miserably on the release, because those people have bought the game. That, first of all, that's good for Paradox. They had a lot of people who bought the game. That's good for them. And I like Paradox, so I'm happy that happened. But the referendum issue is kind of an interesting one on this DLC stuff, because if you have like all these people buy your game and then rate it down, that means they're probably not going to buy a DLC. So
I do wonder about that, though, because
I don't know what's going to happen.
I understand people.
Let's find out. Let's wait till the first DLC. Yeah. Let's see what happens.
Well, I do wonder about that, though, because I feel like, you know, people are making this the rock that they're going to die on for Paradox and their DLC model. But what I would argue, in my opinion, Crusader Kings DLC model is, you know, they've got a huge chunk of DLC. But that occurred over, what, like 6 years? It was usually like 1 or 2 DLCs per year. It was like a $40 investment per year if you stuck around with the game. Personally, I think it worked brilliantly for Crusader Kings. I don't think it's worked very well for Hearts of Iron. I think there have been 1 or 2 DLCs that have been really interesting for Hearts of Iron, but other than that, I don't think the DLC model worked very well. But I think for EU4 and for Crusader Kings, I have no complaints with that model, and I think it's completely justified, and I just don't think you're going to see many games that continue to get updated, expanded, and widened into massive games 4 or 5 years after release if you're not going to have a serious revenue stream via DLC like that. And I think it was completely appropriate what they did with those games. I think it worked really, really well because you were dealing with huge time periods where, like Crusader Kings, they literally added hundreds upon hundreds of years to the game, just, you know, through their DLCs, where I think they moved the start date forward like 300 years from what it originally was when it came out. And so, you know, for a game like that, when you've got that flexibility to add a whole bunch of time to the game, I think it's completely appropriate and fine. And, you know, I would much rather play Crusader Kings as it is now than what it was when it launched. And that's not to say that I didn't think it was a good game at launch. I think it was. There were some things that maybe made it feel a little bit complete, but honestly, if they were just going to say, hey, this is going to be our game and our 2 DLC packs, you're going to end up with, even if you say, release it as a completed game, there's no world in which you get Crusader Kings the way it is now as a completed game. And I would say that's probably true for EU as well.
Well, I think that EU4 was still... okay, well, the thing is that EU3... I don't know. Crusader Kings, it kind of is different... I mean, I guess it is still this... You know, I'm gonna stick with just Europa Universalis because that's the one I'm more familiar with. I have CK, I just don't play it a whole bunch.
I guess my point with Crusader Kings, I'll use the example of Crusader Kings where like they had DLCs specifically that added a ton of depth and complexity to playing as Byzantium. They had a DLC that specifically added a ton of depth and complexity to playing as like the Italian republics. And so like I don't see a completed game where Crusader Kings comes out where you're gonna have all that level of depth for different individual kingdoms. I don't think it's realistic that a developer is gonna pour that many more years and resources behind really fleshing the game out. You don't see a ton of games out there that are like that, and if you do, they tend to be more like individual people passion projects, and they don't, you know, come with the same polish that a Paradox game comes with, or there's something that's put out by a company like Matrix, and you're going to pay $90 for a game up front anyway, you know, like War in the Pacific, and it's still not going to have the polish of a game like Paradox. And that's nothing against Matrix. I love their games, but you're going to pay probably 2 to 3 times what you'd pay for the initial release anyway with a Paradox game. So that's basically baking in 3 or 4 DLCs anyway.
So I got to ask, because this is the first time, as far as, well, not the first time, but this is probably one of the biggest, I'm not going to say flop, but it's definitely a kick in the groin for Paradox, because this many negative reviews for a blockbuster game, their 2019 blockbuster game, right? I think it's incredible, but a lot of people have an opposing viewpoint. Now, this is kind of like the sequel to their first Imperator Rome game, which is not called that, but I forgot the name of the first one, which came out almost like a decade ago.
Isn't it European Rome? It's like a Europa Universalis Rome or something like that. Yeah,
and when they came out with that one, they didn't add anything beyond that, because it didn't do well at all. and they were just like, yeah, we're just going to cut our losses and just go with something else. Do you guys feel, because this one, took a big hit, do you feel like they're going to do the same thing? It's like, yeah, we're just going to cut our losses, we'll patch the game up, get it to working, and then we'll move on. Do you feel like they're going to do that?
I think they've already announced a DLC, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. They'll do something. They'll do at least one DLC.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to have the long tail that Crusader Kings will, but I also don't think they're going to give up on it. They put so much marketing and so much effort behind this. I think they're going to try and sell something to the base that they've already accrued to make back some of their investment.
Yeah, I hope they do, because honestly, I really do enjoy the game. I understand why people are upset and, have opposing viewpoints on the game. But, for what I see, I really do enjoy it. And, I know you were mentioning it's at 40% on the recent reviews. I'm hoping that their new DLC, if they do come out with this new DLC, that can kind of turn the tide. Probably get it at least above the 50% mark to get more and more people interested. Maybe another...
It's just not going to sell enough units to get that to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. Here's part of the problem that I think they're going to run into. Paradox used to be like a 50-person studio?
Yeah.
Crusader Kings and Europa Universalis 4 are the games that allowed them to become the company that they are. Like, those were their first mega hits. Those were their first games to sell more than 1 million copies. Cities Skyline came along, and they didn't develop it, but they did publish it. I mean, that had a big impact. But they had a string of games. Crusader Kings 2, Europa Universalis 4, Cities Skyline, which sold like 7 million copies, and they published. And then to a slightly lesser extent, I think they started to see a bit of a slowdown, but it still has been successful. Hearts of Iron 4. Like, these games all were very successful for them, but also, to varying degrees, rely so heavily on DLC to be able to support the business that they have today. Are they going to sell enough copies of Victoria 3 or of EU 5 or of CK3 to stay a 300-person company, a developer of their size? If they abandon their DLC approach and just say, we're only going to do 1 or 2 DLCs, the average revenue we're going to get per user on a game is $70 instead of maybe $100 or whatever it currently is, are they going to be able to sell more copies? Because to maintain the business they have today, they're going to have to sell more copies than they sell today. They're going to have to sell 2 million copies instead of 1.5 or 1. I don't think that if they change their approach, they're going to make a bunch more money. Maybe they'll get a better review. Maybe they'll still sell roughly what they sell today in terms of the base game. But without all that DLC revenue, does Paradox shrink back down to kind of what it was before? I don't know.
But you feel like that's why they absorb City Skylines, they get more and more games to make up for that.
They didn't absorb it. They publish. They're a publisher, so they publish other games too. They had an issue many years ago where they were known for just publishing and throwing out crap. Like, they did not do enough behind quality control. So
I don't know. Magica wasn't that bad.
I never played it, but there was definitely a period in their history where they were known for just throwing out crap. And I think they kind of admitted that, like, they had serious quality control issues, probably around the Hearts of Iron 3 time frame. And they've addressed a lot of it.
What company came out with that, tank game in Gettysburg? Was that Paradox?
Gettysburg Armored Warfare. They published it. They didn't make it. But yeah, they've had issues in the past with quality control. So I don't think they're just going to come back and be like, we're going to publish just a ton of games and that's where we're going to make our money. Like, remember, Paradox Interactive and Paradox Inc. or whatever, the publishing arm of their company, are technically 2 separate operations under the same hood. The games that we're talking about with this DLC approach are largely Paradox Interactive games. They're in-house games. And I'm not saying the fact that they need to exist justifies their business approach, but this is the business model that they've built their company on. And if they move substantially away from this DLC model, I don't know what that means for the future of Paradox. And it makes me a little uneasy because I personally am totally okay with the approach that they followed for EU and for CK. I don't think it worked as well for Hearts of Iron, and I think that's because Hearts of Iron is a more narrow time frame. I think for that DLC model to really work, I think you need to be able to have a much wider scope game. So I think it works well for EU and CK. I think it works reasonably well for Stellaris. I don't think it works super well for Hearts of Iron, unless they want to turn it into East versus West, which obviously they haven't done. But yeah, I mean that's my thought.
October.
I also wonder how much of the negative response is because this is largely a new IP. It's not one of their major, like their standard tried and true IPs. Like Tortuga, if this was CK3 and they had a similar launch, but it was a CK game instead of something a bit different, like kind of a bit of a little bit of EU, a little bit of a CK, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but in a totally new genre that they don't have a huge established fan base in. Do you think if this was EU5 or if this was CK3 that the response, while potentially negative, would have been perhaps a little bit muted because people were just happy to have another EU or another CK game?
Yeah, I think yeah.
And so I do wonder how much of this is just the fact that it's the Paradox model, but it's something they haven't done in a really long time, and it's something that they don't have 500,000 people waiting for the next game.
I mean, I think this is, first of all, great. I wish Imperium was better. I probably should go back, as John keeps asking us, and playing it again, because it is a great time period. I really have been enjoying Field of Empires, or Field of Glory Empires. It's satisfied that niche for me, but this is a great time period. It's so cool to play games in this.
We didn't mention this. The Fall of the Empire. To me, that's more interesting and less covered. The Republic is just old and stale to me. There's too many games out there on it.
What about that game that you were playing, the Centurion one?
Centurion one?
Oh,
A Legionary's Life.
Yeah, but that's completely different. That's like that's an RPG.
Yeah, that's not a strategy game, but I'm just saying that it's really cool. This is the time period that it's okay. I don't know. I don't know how to rank time periods to play strategy games in, but this one's up there.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, I think what's going to happen. I think it's on the board of consideration at least. I have a feeling because everybody and their mother is trying to become a subscription service. Everybody wants to become a service. I think what's going to happen eventually is they might have the discussion like you were saying, Matt, and I think they're eventually going to say, well, instead of like pumping out DLCs and hoping people buy them and trying to get that money that we need to grow our company and to do all these revenue streams, why don't we just make a service where everybody gets all the games that we make and consistent weekly or monthly updates with more and more content? Do you feel like that might be a possibility? Because you could see it across the board. Like a couple of companies are like, you have Google Stadia coming out, and you have numerous other. You have Xbox that they have that service. I forgot it's called Game Pass, I believe. So I start noticing this games as a service coming out. And we did talk about this earlier in a couple of episodes before. But do you feel like Paradox might take that plunge?
Maybe. I don't know if they have a large enough like hardcore base to build their business on that, because you can't charge $50 a month. So what are you going to charge? Like $10 a month, $20 a month? And how many people are you leaving out who are going to say, no, I don't want to sign up for a subscription. I'm not going to pay, the subscription service game is interesting, but I think like it works for a company like EA because they have such a huge embedded base of people who pay for Madden every year or pay for FIFA every year. It's just such a huge base to draw from that it kind of works. And even then, I don't think the core of their business is subscription. I don't personally know anyone who subscribes to EA Access. Obviously there's people out there, but I just don't know if gaming as a subscription-based service is going to catch on in the same way that it does for Netflix or other things like that, because people are so particular about what they want. And I don't think you have the same. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not convinced it's the market isn't there yet. I don't think. And it would be a pretty big gamble for Paradox just to be like, hey, you can try all of our games for $10 a month. And then someone dives in and they give up on it after a couple of weeks and they never subscribe again and they never come back to Paradox again. As opposed to, hey, this is Paradox. We're rolling out a game. Give it a try for $20 and you buy it and you don't like it. But hey, maybe you'll like EU5 when that comes out. Maybe you'll like Victoria. Like different, I think you're more likely to get someone to try different IPs than a subscription service. But that's just my perception.
The thing I'm worried about is that I was going through I was trying to get like a PDF app to open up, I had to do some military stuff. So the PDF that I was trying to open up had a specific format. It was, I guess, for military security. And I was trying to just get a regular PDF app off the App Store. And as I was going through
John leaks military secrets.
No. But I mean, I noticed as I was going through all these PDF apps, they were free to download. But the moment you try to do something in them, they were like, oh, by the way, if you do want to open up PDFs, we do have a $9.99 monthly service where you can open up all the PDFs that you want and you can edit them. And I'm like, okay, that's 1, and then 2, then 3, then 4. I'm like, holy shit, all these PDF apps are requiring subscription like Netflix. I mean, they're costing almost...
Pay to read.
Yeah, basically. And it's like, it's fucking ridiculous because it's like, these PDF apps, then I was trying to get like a gym app to just record how many sets I do, and then they want to charge $4.99. So I feel like a lot of developers and publishers want to get on this like service bandwagon where they get a consistent revenue stream, and it's very scary that we're going down this lane.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's any different than someone saying, hey, I want you to spend $5 to buy my app, as opposed to spend 99 cents per month. I don't know. I mean, yes, I think subscription-based services are certainly something that's popular, and I think part of that is because people tend to subscribe and then completely forget they're subscribing to it, and then they stay subscribed longer than they would otherwise.
Yeah, seriously.
And that definitely happens, and it's not that's nothing new. That is something that, I used to work in customer service for a cell phone company, and you'd be amazed what people signed up for a ringtone service and they left it on there for 6 months, not even knowing it was there. And that dates back. That's a years old thing. That's something that is proven to occur. So as people become more comfortable with subscription-based services, you're going to see people try to exploit that. But I think gaming's a little bit different. I think you see a lot of that on phones because people are so, for whatever reason, people have been conditioned to expect apps to be free. So if you are turning off your customers by asking for money for your service, how do you get around that? Well, you offer some kind of free trial, and then it turns into a subscription the moment you use where the real value is. So you hook people in to download it, and then they'll subscribe to it. Gaming hasn't gone that direction yet. Maybe it will, but I think there's a very different consumer expectation, at least in PC gaming, than there is in the App Store. And that could certainly change over time, but I'm not sure if it will. Or if it does, I'm not sure it'll happen anytime soon. I don't know. Yes, you see a lot of people doing subscription-based services, but I wonder how much of that is the core business model, or if that's just hey, this is a new way to capture a different group of people that otherwise wouldn't. I'm not willing to pay $50 for this game, but I'll give you $10 to try it out. But if you're someone who plays that game religiously, you probably don't want to pay per month. You probably want a flat fee that you don't have to keep paying because eventually it's going to outweigh the cost of just the regular purchase. So I think it depends. I wouldn't be surprised to see them try something, but I don't think that means that it's necessarily going to change their core business model. Right? They could easily say, hey, get the Paradox Pass for $10 a month, but, that doesn't mean that that's where they're going to get 90% of their revenue. That might just be for people who haven't purchased it yet, give it a try. Kind of like they do when they say, like, it's Paradox, free weekend or whatever. Play Crusader Kings free for the weekend.
Well, we will definitely find out a lot more detail on what they're planning to do. I'm assuming they're probably going to announce new DLC or some kind of Imperator news in October when they have the PDX Con. So I'm looking forward to it because rumor is new game's going to be announced. So we'll see more from Paradox then, and it's going to be a big hype train coming around for that one.
They're hosting it in a big building in Berlin that was famously important in the Cold War. So, they're also announcing a new game there. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a Cold War game.
And as we mentioned Germany, the next thought on my head was, what are you guys drinking tonight?
Sparkling water.
Sparkling water?
Very European of me.
Yeah, out of anybody talking, I thought you were going to have the scotch.
No scotch in this household today. I got some White Claws in the fridge.
Oh, shit. Tortuga? Scotch?
No. I'm drinking milk.
Does the body good.
How is it? Finely aged milk? Is it a little bit curdled? 25 years in an old oak cask.
Little yellow. Looks like scotch.
It's 2%. 2% milk. To give you guys the details.
4 proof. His milk is 4 proof. He's got 4 proof milk.
Well, I've been having coffee, so yeah, we definitely need to change the name of this podcast.
It's the once
other than drinking
the podcast formerly known as Single Malt Strategy.
And then once we start drinking again, I guess we can be like Prince and just go back. All right, well, that does it for this episode of the Single Malt Strategy podcast. I will say my adieu, and Matt and Tortuga.
Oh, I don't have a name now. I'm just Tortuga.
Tortuga, the maybe Eric.
And Dr. Matt.
Dr. Matt? It's the historical gamer, gaming his way through history.
Nintendo power. Historical gamer power.
From Gettysburg to Tripoli.
Oh, man. All right, guys, that does it for this episode. We'll catch you guys in the next one. See you then.